My name's Melissa Gill. I'm Chair of Mission and Evangelism at Memorial Presbyterian. I'd like to welcome you all here tonight to learn some more about this important topic and what we can do to help. I'd like to first introduce Memorial's Pastor Tracy Evans and our new sister church, First Congregational Church, Norman David Wheeler, Pastor David Wheeler of our sister church, and we have good attendance from you guys, and we're so happy to have you here. I'd also like to thank Michael Yeager, who is our technician, our technical guy, Joe Beth Bailey, and Michael Cole from our church who helped, and Tracy Mamone from our sister church who helped kind of get this organized. But to get right to it, one more introduction, our distinguished guest, Norman Police Department Lieutenant Carrie Bryant. Thank you, and thank you. Please extend our thanks to the police department for being supportive of community events, and we're glad to have you here. And then we're going to start with a video, and I'm going to say a few more words after the video, but let's watch the video.
We don't have a fridge, just the sink is our fridge. We have to get ice mostly every day because it melts during night. There's really not enough food. All there is cans of vegetables. So I've been eating vegetables. Poor people get Nutrition Club because they can't afford to get other food.
Thank you very much.
Nutrition Club is a bag of food that you get every Friday and you have to make last the whole weekend. I think there's a lot of people in America that need help with food because they're poor or they're either homeless or they're both.
It's a kid at the school who looks dressed worse than me, but he has his own house though. He got a house to call home. He don't have to go sit down with thousands of people to eat dinner. He can run to his refrigerator and open it up, and I can't do that. I have to wait till a certain time, and I have to eat, because if I don't eat, I will starve all night until the next morning.
So as you can see, that was a PBS documentary, short documentary. Oklahoma is the 8th hungriest state in the nation. 1 in 6 Oklahomans struggle with hunger. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, there's some jargon and terminology we could call it, or SNAP, which used to be called food stamps, is currently helping almost 14% of Oklahoma households, although many food insecure individuals are not eligible for that program. The census shows 17% of Oklahomans live below the poverty line, compared with 15.5% nationwide, so Oklahoma is below the national average on that as well. A term they used in there is food insecurity. Hunger is an individual physiological, you're either hungry or you're not hungry. Food insecurity is a chronic, ongoing, household-level, socioeconomic condition of limited or uncertain access to adequate food. Food insecurity may reflect a household's need to make trade-offs between important basic needs, such as housing or medical bills, and purchasing nutritionally adequate foods. Food deserts are defined by both poverty and lack of access to good food. So it's two things: how far you are from a good, reasonably priced food, and poverty levels, so that whether people can afford it. Okay, so our goal today, the video was mostly about child hunger. Clearly when you have child hunger, it's because there's a household that has hunger issues, and there are also many adults. So I would like to introduce the panelists. Why don't you all go sit, and then I'll introduce you. And I'd also like to say that April Heupel was supposed to be here from Food and Shelter, and she had a medical emergency, her mother. So thoughts and prayers for April Heupel's mother. So Lynn Haynes, Executive Director of Meals on Wheels of Norman, is a Norman native and graduate of the University of Oklahoma. Lynn, put your hand up so we know who we're talking about. Lynn has been employed in the nonprofit world for the past 25 years, working at Meals on Wheels for 21 of those years. During that time, Meals on Wheels has tripled in size. Mark Coulter is next to her, is General Manager of Food Services for the Norman Public Schools. He has 5 years experience there and 17 years with Sodexo, which is the company that Norman Public Schools contract with to provide the food. He oversees daily food service operations, serving nutritious meal options to our students. Mark is accountable for the development and success of the food services operating budget and works closely with staff to implement new initiatives and programs. Katie Fitzgerald of the Regional Food Bank of Oklahoma has spent her entire career in the nonprofit sector working to improve the lives of vulnerable children, youth, and families. Currently, she serves as Chief Executive Officer of the Regional Food Bank of Oklahoma, which is the state's largest private domestic hunger relief organization, and is a member of the Feeding America network of food banks. The Regional Food Bank of Oklahoma provides enough food to feed more than 136,000 hungry Oklahomans each week through a network of 1,300 schools and charitable feeding programs in 53 central and western Oklahoma counties. That's most of the state, isn't it? Really, not just central and west. Prior to joining the Regional Food Bank, she was with Make-A-Wish Oklahoma, as well as Center for Children and Families in Norman. She began her career as a AmeriCorps Vista volunteer, and she was educated in Michigan. Sunny Hill, who graciously at the last minute agreed to fill in for April. Hill is the food service director at Norman's Food and Shelter. She has been preparing and serving food for the past 50 years. Wow. As an executive chef, restaurateur, farmer, rancher, gardener, and natural food producer, developer, and manufacturer. She is also a teacher, mentor, and passionate advocate for healthy, affordable food and sustainable practices in business and life. She holds degrees and certificates for, she's a master gardener, she has an MBA, she's an executive chef, and a yoga instructor. So I thought we might start with the Regional Food Bank just to kind of get a regional overview. So, and 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll do the panel, and then we'll have questions.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay, so I thought I would give you a little bit of scope, how we understand the problem of hunger in Oklahoma, and talk to you a little bit about what we do, because what we do is connected to sort of what everybody, we're all connected in feeding hungry people. So my numbers are just a little bit different, but we work with Feeding America, which is the largest network for food relief in the United States. There are about 200 food banks across the country that are part of that network. And our job is to go out and procure food that would otherwise end up in a landfill and bring that food in and to provide that food to food banks and agencies and schools to help feed hungry people. So it's very simple what we do, but it's huge. So give you a little bit of scale, in Oklahoma, 1 in 6, as was mentioned, people are deemed food insecure according to the USDA and Feeding America. That's about 635,000 people. 1 in 4 children in our state, so the rate is higher for children, because children are generally more vulnerable. It's about, our best estimate based on last year's numbers, is about 218,000 children. That's about 23%. It's pretty similar to the poverty rate. The food bank in Cleveland County, I know you wanted some Cleveland County numbers. The numbers that I have for Cleveland County are about 40,000 people in Cleveland County are food insecure, which is an estimate that we get from the USDA that we work with. That's about 14% of the population here. And we think about 12,000 kids are food insecure in Cleveland County. So how the food bank works is our job is to find about 50 million pounds of food every year. And we do that by working with retailers and food producers and the whole host of folks who grow and produce manufacture and distribute food in this country. We're bringing trucks from California and Arizona and Washington, apples. We are bringing and procuring food from across the United States, and we can do that because we work in partnership with this pretty extensive food bank network, so we can work with each other that way. We bring in about 50 million pounds altogether, and we're distributing that to about 1,200 organizations. And I left some of these in the back so you guys can get a little more detail on us. But I want to talk to you a little bit about what that looks like. So about 350 of those partners, one of which is Food and Shelter, are community-based organizations. And of course, they're doing the frontline work of feeding hungry people. And our job is to help them get food, get as much food as possible to do that. So that's how we work with those about 350 partner organizations. And then we work with about 750 schools, and we work with every school level, elementary, middle, high school, and actually college. And I want to say a little bit about that, because those programs are what we call our Food for Kids programs. You actually saw that in the PBS piece. So for elementary school kids, we do what we call backpacks, the backpack program. And basically every Friday, just like in the piece, kids who are identified, and we have 500 elementary schools right now in our program across the 53 counties we serve. A kiddo who's identified as food insecure can get a backpack. It's really that plastic bag of food put into their backpack. It helps them eat and have enough food over the weekend. We don't hope that that's all the food they're eating, but we want to make sure that if they're not getting much at home, they're getting food. And why that's so important is that for so many of our families, and I'll say something on SNAP in a minute, they're really, as you guys can imagine, stretching those dollars thin. And so being able to supplement kids' nutrition, and this is shelf-stable food, Pop-Tops, protein sticks, milk that doesn't need to be refrigerated until it's open, cereal, nuts, raisins, things like that that kids could literally have in their bedroom if they needed to and eat. So that program covers about 20,000 kids. So there are literally 20,000 backpacks going out to these 500 schools every Friday in the state from our food bank. Then we have school pantries in middle and high schools. And that's because teenagers do not really want a little bag of food. They can cook food more than an elementary school kid can. So we actually set up pantries. And both high schools in Norman have pantries with us. We have about 172 of those pantries in the middle and high schools that we serve in our service area. And they're just pantries. They're like a pantry you would imagine you might go if you're an adult in need of food. And kids can take food home to help feed themselves and their families. So it's a really wonderful program for those kids. At the college level, I just was able to celebrate with OCCC the opening of a food pantry there that's a partner with us. We have a food pantry at OU. We have a food pantry at several career techs. And for those students, it really can be the difference between them staying in school or, because, you know, again, it's all about economic trade-offs. Food insecurity is really at base economic insecurity. So if you are struggling to pay your rent, pay your tuition, pay medical bills, the whole host of issues that families face, you will cut your food budget. And because that's the one thing that you can kind of, you think, not have to do. And so people will cut their food budgets and therefore become food insecure. SNAP, I want to say something about SNAP. So in our state, my numbers are that we have about 800, well we had, they're not just my numbers, they're the federal government's numbers. We had 850,000 Oklahomans participate in SNAP last year. And I really want to just make sure everybody here, and you help people understand this, there's a lot of discussion going on about SNAP, and there's a policy provision I'd love to respond to later after other panelists speak that I think is really important that you understand. SNAP is huge in our state. It's about 1/5 of our entire population. Just think about that for a minute. 1/5 of our entire population participates in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which means that any major cuts to that program is going to affect a whole heck of a lot of people. And it also represents about close to $900 million that comes in to this state for food. Our retailers depend on it, our families depend on it, and I can say more about that if folks have questions about that. The food bank, we also do direct service to clients. So we do have senior mobile markets and fresh food mobile markets. We're very proud of the fact of the 50 million pounds of food we procure, about 26% is produce. So there's a big myth out there that low-income folks aren't interested in produce, or I will often hear and have to dispel this notion that, well, if somebody's obese, how could they possibly be hungry? Well, it has a lot to do with the quality of food people are eating. And all people, wealthy people and low-income people really love produce. And so we work very hard to get produce into families. And then finally, I'll just say a word and let the other panelists say some things. Our volunteer center is really the lifeblood of what we do. We have a massive volunteer center. About a fifth of the food we procure has to be repacked. So one of my favorite examples of this is we will get an 800-pound bag of cereal. And that's how food banks work. I mean, we can take product that nobody else can take because we have the facilities and the capability to break that down into family-sized portions. And then we get it out to our pantries and our partners, Food and Shelter and the like. So we need volunteers who can come in and literally spike that bag of cereal and fill all the other bags and label it and do it in a way that makes sure food safety is tended to. So we have about 42,000 people in our state that come, those are individual counts, come and volunteer at our volunteer center every year. And it, again, represents about a fifth of the product that we're able to move out. So feeding hungry people is definitely a community job, and I think you're going to hear from these guys about how far that extends.
Thank you, Katie. I don't know, can everyone hear me? Okay, I will speak up. Can you hear now? Okay, I don't think these are actually on.
Yes, they are.
On? Okay.
Just move it closer.
Let me explain what it is that we do at Food and Shelter. We have a hot meal service every day, and we do that 7 days a week, 364 days a year. Christmas Day is the only day that we don't actually serve a hot meal. We do because it is done by one of the other organizations here in town. We do breakfast and lunch every single day, and we feed up to between 10 and 15,000 meals every single month. And that's how many meals go out of our kitchen every month. It doesn't matter, we don't ask them any questions. We will serve anybody who walks in the door. You do not have to be homeless. You do not have to even be food insecure. We don't ask any questions at all about whether you need a meal or why. You can just come and have a meal. And we are able to produce really good, nutritious meals 7 days a week, 365 days a year because of all the support that we get from the community. We have many, many volunteer groups that come in, and they provide not only the labor, but they provide the ingredients as well. So they come in with their group and they bring all the food for that particular meal. They use our facility and fix the meal and serve it. And then we get to do the cleanup, which is fine with me. That's fine with me. But I have probably 20 of those every single month. I have 20 various groups. And then we also have evening meals periodically, which are done by individual families as well as other community and church groups throughout the community. So we take care of our homeless people in that way, but like I said, we don't ask any questions. You don't have to be homeless. We serve, we probably serve half or more of our community is not actually homeless. They are just food insecure. Children are always welcome as well, and during the holidays, when school is out, we have a lot more children. We also send food home with people, so if people come in and they have people who are at home that need to have those meals, it's kind of like Meals on Wheels. We just wrap up their plates and let them take them home with them. They do not have to eat there in the cafeteria. They can always take that home with them. How they come to us is a mystery to me. I think that word gets around very quickly within the community of people who are homeless or who are have those needs, and they hear about Food and Shelter, and word gets around. So It is really remarkable how we get an amazing influx of people at every season change. And they're people that I haven't seen before. They probably came into town from somewhere else and learned of us and managed to get themselves there. How can the community help? The community already does help us tremendously with volunteer hours. I have probably 100 to 150 volunteers in a month's time just in the kitchen. And throughout the rest of the organization, we probably have another 25 to 30 volunteers within a month's time. We also work with the courts here in Norman, and we have a community service program. So those folks who need to get community service hours done for whatever reason, they can come and do them with us. And the other ways that the community can help is that we just, anytime you want to come, you just come on down and I'll show you what to do. I'll put a broom in your hand. We are always in constant need of non-perishable food items as well as other food items. We can take anything that has not been opened. So any product that you have gotten from wherever, whatever store, we can accept that as long as it has not been opened, the original packaging is intact. During the winter time, we are not able to take clothing anymore. We used to be able to do that, but we're not able to take clothing anymore. But in the winter, we take coats and hats and gloves and always socks and underwear because those are things that need replacing often. Something that we have been doing just this past year since we moved to our new location, some people tell me that they don't know where we are now. Do all of you know where Food and Shelter is now? Our new location? There's a no. It's 201 Reed Avenue. We're directly south of Griffin Memorial Hospital, off of Main Street, East Main Street, and it's the very last street on the south side before you get to 12th Avenue and the Walmart that's over there. So if you get to 12th Street, you can turn around and come back. You can kind of see the little village there. We have 32 housing units now, which we also house people. We have many, many other services besides food service, but since we're focusing on food insecurity here, let's just concentrate on that. But we also help people access other services that they need throughout the community. We have case managers who do that, and we also have those. The really wonderful thing about our new facility is that we are able to house people without having to meet all the requirements of the HUD guidelines as well as the city funding, because we have had adopters for each of those units. And we have groups and families that have adopted each unit, and they come in and they refurnish it, and they help pay the utilities, and this is an ongoing commitment that is just amazing. That the community already does help us a lot. And the ways in which we help each other, the organizations throughout our community here, is that we share things back and forth. If I get a whole lot, let's say I get 200 pounds of potatoes in, I can't use those, and I can't give them out very quickly in my pantry, because my pantry is quite small. We serve probably 10 to 15 different clients or families every day. We do our pantry every single day. We do it from 1 o'clock to 3:30 in the afternoon. And anybody can come. We do serve homeless clients as well. You don't have to have an address. And you can also visit once a week. Since we are not able to pack a box of 95 to 100 pounds like the larger food pantries do, we let them come back once a week. We try to be a stopgap in between when they can go get much more supplies from a regular food pantry. And we also don't require them to, like I said, have an address. We just require an ID, and then they can use Food and Shelter as their address if they're actually homeless. Those kinds of things. When I have a lot of stuff, though, I start calling all the other agencies in town and say, can you use this? Do you need this? I'm in constant touch with McFarland and Mission Norman and not Meals on Wheels. I haven't called Meals on Wheels, but I might do that in the future. And those, you know, we just, what is it, the clubhouse? Thunderbird Clubhouse calls me sometimes when they have extra produce they can't use. And I do the same with them if I have bread or something. So that's how we do that. We want to make sure that the food actually gets put into the hands of people who can eat it before it has to be thrown away. So it's really important. There's a very, very cooperative and helpful community amongst all the agencies here in Norman. So there you go. That's what we do.
Well, thank you. And I'm Mark Coulter, the General Manager of Norman Public Schools Food Service. Sodexo is the company that I work with, and we get the opportunity every day to serve 10,000 little kiddos breakfast and lunch. Actually, there's 15,000 students in Norman, and we feed 10,000, so we're pretty close to all of them. One of the things I want to talk about, and a lot of people are aware of, is we have the Free and Reduced program, or the USDA federally funded program that allows anybody to fill out applications and get approved for the free or reduced category. That is based on income, and SNAP plays an important part on that, because people that are getting assistance, we are automatically able to approve them as free through the WAVE program. So kids, they don't even have to fill out applications. The best thing that I think Norman does with that program is kids don't have to, we never want kids to feel offended or threatened when they come to lunch. They want to be able to eat, they want to have food whenever it's available, whenever they want it. We do not refuse any child in Norman a meal, a reimbursable meal based on income. If their account is in the negative, it doesn't matter. The kids never know that. We do everything behind the scenes with the parents, and yes, we do have to be bill collectors, I guess you'd call it at some point. But as far as the kids are concerned, they always have access to the meat, to the free, in their mind, it's a free meal they get to eat anytime somebody needs it. Breakfast program hasn't been changed in price since I got here, and I think before I got here, so that's been at least 5 years. We only charge 90 cents for breakfast when they have to pay, but again, never deny kids breakfast, no matter what the case on their meal. Along with that, we have the summer feeding program, summer lunch program. I keep getting in trouble because I use that term feeding program. That's not appropriate. But that's what it was called years ago, and it's been going on for forever. But we do offer 9 different sites in the summer where kids can come and get a free meal. No cost at all, free meal. We do it in several different locations so that kids have access to those locations. One of the ways we partner with our friends here is Friends and Shelter. At the end of a week, if we have food that we can't keep over the weekend, we bring it to the Food and Shelter program and donate it. So we're helping each other out through all that process as well. Another area that we benefited this year with all the community support was when the teachers had the walkout. And during that period of time, it was instructed by the district that we would operate every elementary school all day, for breakfast and lunch for any kids in that area of town that wanted to come in, including Lakeview out there. And so we did through that entire time. Even if it was one child that came into the school, we had a full meal set up, ready to go, and worked with them. And every organization, including Meals on Wheels, everybody worked together as a community effort to make all that happen during that time frame, so that teachers and mainly so that students didn't have to worry about where am I going to get food during this time. Over Thanksgiving, we work together with the Thanksgiving Day meal. For Food and Shelter, they get to do it. I don't do a lot, I just have to help them with the facility, but we do what we do. But the reality is that we're always coming up with ways to work together to get those kids taken care of. The backpack program, as was mentioned, we make sure that it's transported from our warehouse into all the schools by Friday, so those kids have that meal when they go home on Friday. That's a big task to haul. I don't know exactly how many we get, but I know there's 10 different pallets of backpacks that all of our drivers run out and get it there. So we all work together doing that. The food pantries that are going on in the middle schools and the high schools, and you mentioned that that's a program there. There are also some that are generated by donations from the community. And I was instructed that they're running low. So, you know, getting the word out that if you're looking that you want to donate, that's another place that kids need help. Middle school kids, kind of, they're in between the high school and the elementary, so they kind of get lost a little bit there, but definitely need that help too. We do food drives throughout the year with the Stop Hunger program as a Sodexo program, but we do them locally here. One of the most popular ones is the employees get to wear blue jeans and an orange shirt if they pay $1. You would be surprised, they all love paying that $1. So they pay $1 every day for the whole week to be able to wear this, and then we generate that revenue and we take it and donate it to the local food banks. We try and keep the money locally, but we know that even putting it through the Oklahoma City Food Bank, it ends up back in Norman just as well, because everybody is working together here. We, as our corporation, Sodexo goes to the food bank in Oklahoma City and with all of our managers throughout the state of Oklahoma on one given day, and we pack boxes. So that box of cereal, I've been there. But it's a lot of fun. We do it for a day, and it's a competition. They have it set up there that it's a competition between the groups to see who does the most pounds and weight, and we all have fun doing that. So that's a great thing. Let's see. I think I've touched on most of the things. This is a scholarship that we do offer. It's a Stephen J. Bradley Stop Hunger Scholarship that's offered to the kiddos in the Norman Public Schools. Actually, it's offered anywhere that Sodexo operates their food service. And it offers $500 or a $5,000 grant for their hunger-related charity, as well as a $5,000 scholarship for the winner that receives this grant. So there's several grants that we do with the school for the kids in the high school. Let's see. And I think on the surface that, you know, that's all. I just, you know, there's tons of things that we all do to help everybody out, and mainly to help the kids, to make sure the kids have something. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Lynn with Meals on Wheels, and before I go on, I really want to see a picture of the 800-pound cereal. That's amazing. Here at Meals on Wheels, we serve the ill, disabled, and elderly of Norman. We've been in business for 46 years. It was actually started by Tito Prickett and June Morgan, and Tito started cooking meals out of her own kitchen. And she had 4 volunteers, and that's what got the ball rolling. Today we deliver about 300 meals each day, between 5,000 and 6,000 meals a month, and we have to have 100 volunteers each week to get the meals out. So we truly are a volunteer-driven organization. We contract with Norman Regional Health System to prepare the meals. A lot of people aren't aware that 50% of all the ailments affecting senior citizens can be corrected through proper diet. So about half the meals we deliver are diabetic, they're low sodium, healthy heart. We even have renal diets, just about anything you can think of, allergies. The kitchen will go ahead and cut the meat for certain people that don't have full use of their hands. So the nutrition aspect of Meals on Wheels is truly important, but just as important as that nutrition is the volunteer. A lot of these people that volunteer is the only person that's going to see them in the day. I always tell, when I first started with Meals on Wheels, and this was 20 years ago, so I had a volunteer call, and it was before everyone had cell phones, and said, hey, I can hear her, but I can't tell what she's saying, her TV's too loud, and the door's locked. And I said, well, I'll meet you over there. You can deliver the rest of your meals, and I'll call 911 or, check on her first. And I just checked a window. Like I said, 20 years ago, it was very easy for me to crawl through the window. And this lady had fallen in the middle of the night. She'd probably gotten up to turn down her TV. And I had to actually step over her to reach the phone to call 911. And as I was stepping over her, she said, I knew I was going to be okay because I knew Meals on Wheels was coming. So it's very impactful. And not only to the clients, but we've had volunteers that have been with us for over 30 years. So it's just truly an important program. Besides that daily meal, and like I said, we use Norman Regional Health System. They've been one of our partners since the beginning. They've always fixed the specialized meals, and I think for the last 30 years, they fixed all the meals for us. And they do that at a reduced rate for us. We still pay for the meals, but they give us a break. We also have a food pantry for a lot of our clients. We aren't limited by income. We have people that pay for their meals, and we have people that don't pay for their meals. And that's why we have a food closet. And we also, out of that food closet, we prepare shelf-stable meals like Katie was talking about earlier to send home with people, or send with the drivers on Thursdays and Fridays to make sure they've got enough food. We also have an insure program that comes about. Doctors say, hey, you need to supplement your diet, and it's $30 a case. A lot of people can't afford it. So we will go ahead and send that out. And we also have a pet food program, and I actually serve on the National Meals on Wheels Pet Food Program Committee. And we've been doing it for about 15 years, and I write grants, or we have different civic clubs and groups collect pet food for us, and we get it in small bags so our people can handle it. But we don't want our clients sharing their food with their pets, and it's not good for either one. You can't feed my dog anything different than his normal pet food, or you'll be sorry. But that's basically what Meals on Wheels does. We do work with other groups. Food and Shelter, they help us. They provide the Thanksgiving meal, and for our clients at Thanksgiving, the ones that need it. And we also work with Norman Community Christmas Dinner. The same thing, we route all these people out. Not everyone needs it, but about a third, maybe 2/3 now, of all our clients do receive that.
I'd like to say a couple other organizations that I remembered was Community After School Snack Program, CASP, did a tremendous amount of work this past year, especially in making sure daycare was provided during the time of the teacher walkout. And then our police, local police and fire department do tremendous amount of work sharing their efforts with the community, one being the chili supper that they put on, a huge ordeal. I get to see the back scenes of that through our kitchen where they cook it all, and a lot of work that they go through to do things like that. So I want to point those out.
Thank you. Do people have questions that you've written down? Because I'm happy to, do you have a question on your card? No? Anybody over here not?
I don't have a card. Yes,
You need a card.
We could just ask, maybe we could just ask him from our seats.
Okay, but I know some people don't like to do that, so if you'd rather hand me a card, okay. And then we'll do it the other way too. Thank you. The first question is about the SNAP program. Isn't it fairly difficult to qualify? Don't many still fall through the cracks?
I can take that. So I actually have the numbers for Cleveland County. I pulled them before I came. So in Cleveland County, based on our most recent estimate, about 42% of the about 40,000 that are estimated to be food insecure would qualify for SNAP. So, right, so that's true. So there's a good amount of people who are food insecure, but if you're not 130% of poverty or below, you would not qualify for SNAP. And even with SNAP, there's a lot of discussion in the media now about it. There are work requirements and education requirements currently with SNAP. So you have to do 20 hours, you have to be working 20 hours a week or in some sort of education program 20 hours a week. For most able-bodied people in SNAP, so SNAP covers disabled, ill, children, parents with dependent children. But if you're an able-bodied single adult, you can get 3 months of SNAP. And really most of the data says about 85% of people who are on SNAP are working the year before or the year after, so it really is a bridge program. So it is true that SNAP, though a great benefit, is still really limited in its reach. And the average SNAP benefit per person is about $120. I've met seniors in food pantries who get $15 a month from SNAP, and they're living on Social Security, and that $15 is helpful, but it's not. I mean, it is not true that SNAP is really fulfilling the full meal needs of any family out there. I wanted to say something about SNAP, if I could, in relationship to what else you all can do, because I know you've heard how you can volunteer or share with your families or your friends how people can volunteer at any one of our organizations or all of our organizations. But public policy is a really important part of hunger relief in this country. So what Mark was talking about and what we do when we're providing meals out for folks, we're getting a federal reimbursement through the Farm Bill and through the Child Nutrition Title, which basically just means that the federal government has said, we don't think poor kids should go without eating, and so we're going to provide money through the Farm Bill that allows us to get reimbursed for those meals. So I wanted you to know that someone is paying for those meals, and it's your taxes that pays for those meals. But the other piece of that is there's a current, just 2 days ago, there was a, and I would ask you to look this up, and I could certainly provide information to folks later. Currently, this applies to legal immigrants in this country. There's a new rule that just got dropped on October 10th. And there's a 60-day public comment period. And the new rule adds, so currently you would be deemed by the Department of Homeland Security as a public charge, meaning you're dependent on the government. If you draw on any SSI, which is sort of for disabled folks, or any TANF, which is cash assistance. The new rule expands that scope to add about 4 or 5 other public benefit programs, including SNAP, including Medicaid, including drug prescription relief, including there's a number of things. And it also adds about 14 new elements. So if you are basically a poor legal immigrant in this country, I want to emphasize this is just about legal immigrants. The number of things that the federal government is adding that would allow them to deny you a green card or citizenship are being vastly and quickly increased. And it's also believed that then the Department of Justice will likely pick that up for deportations. So I just encourage you, see me afterwards if you're interested. There's a lot of great information. Our board's taking action on it this week because it really will result in a lot of people who are here legally, and maybe their children are U.S. citizens because their children have been born here. But if they ever participate in SNAP or get, it's housing too, rental assistance for housing, get any kind of form of rental assistance, get prescription drug relief or anything like that, then the feds can say they can never give them a green card and they may be able to deport them over it. So it's real.
Families, they will not fill out the
That's
free
right.
lunch.
So our,
they are afraid to fill the free
yeah. So our greatest fear right now,
they will not fill them out.
right, because this is really intended to scare people. It's real,
It works.
but it works, and it will scare people from coming forward to get help. And as a result, food and shelter, you guys, Meals on Wheels, and food banks we'll have to pick up the gap if we can even get those people to come to our food pantries because they're even scared to come there.
Anyway.
Is information about that on your website?
You know, it's not on my website yet, but it hopefully will be after our board meeting. I have to get the board to.
Okay.
But there are. I have some. You could Google public charge, rule change, And there's just a plethora of information on the internet right now, really helpful stuff. There's 60 days now for the public to make comments, so I would encourage you to do that.
Thank you. A question for Meals on Wheels. Do clients have to be homebound to qualify?
No, they don't. It's ill disabled and elderly, and actually it starts at 60. An average Meals on Wheels client is in their 80s. But, you know, if someone's got a car that they drive once a week to church, we're not gonna say we can't help you. Or if they drive their car every day.
Okay.
Is there income? Is there qualifications?
No, we were founded to not do that. Meals on Wheels here in Norman does not receive any state or federal funding.
Okay.
It's all through our sliding fee scale. We have a ton of fundraisers. And, you know, we have donation campaigns. But we serve everybody.
But you do have a sliding fee scale. In other words, if somebody who is living with their child who works,
Yeah.
but they can afford to pay $3 a day, you send out a monthly bill, right?
Yes.
And then if it's somebody who's on their own and everything like that, and they can afford to pay $1 a day, then that's what they get charged, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And
That's
it-
my experience, and that's from an experience question, I'm not
Yes.
looking at me.
Yes.
Thank you.
And it's important because a lot of people will say, well, you know, it's charity or whatever, and it's not. It's not. It's not for everybody.
The next question is for Mark. So these pantries for students at middle and high school, how do those work with the factor that kids might be embarrassed if, you know, they didn't want their friends to know that they need to use that, or how's that addressed?
I reached out to the young lady that kind of oversees the pantry at the, I believe it was Whittier Middle School. And what I understand to be the case is they put them in a backpack to seclude them. You don't see them carrying food, you see them carrying a certain backpack. So it's the same type as what the kids typically would have to help offset that feeling of that. And with the elementary kids, then the backpack that we use there too, that we get cases of backpacks additionally to the food. So the food goes in the backpack and then the backpack goes with the child. I mean, there's still, you're gonna identify it, it's still identifiable. But from what I understand from the middle school, that's what they try and do.
I could add a little bit there. We, for both our college and our high school and middle school pantries, you would be surprised how much more prevalent food insecurity is. That we get a lot of reports from our schools that, you know, it's not like kids want everybody to know, but it's not like a huge deterrent for kids to get help. And the teachers usually find out. And then what folks do in the schools, and OCCC just did this, is they kind of place the pantry room near an exit. So it's really easy for kids to go get that food and kind of just get right out that exit. So they're not carrying it through the halls. They're not. It's just not as visible. But we have found so many kids willing to come and get that food.
I also know from experience with the Norman North High School, they buy the bags rather than a backpack, but they buy bags that are not see-through, so they use black plastic bags for, you know, just t-shirt bags instead of the clear ones, and that helps also.
This is a question about the food bank. Does the regional food bank charge partners such as Food and Shelter to whom they provide food? I mean, in other words, the other nonprofits that you work with, how does that work?
So we don't charge for food. We have two kinds of food that we procure. We procure food that we get donated to us, and then we move that food out and let agencies order that online. What we do charge is a transportation fee, because we are unlike many food banks where we deliver all the food to our pantries. So a lot of food banks across the country, agencies will have to come pick that food up, and we deliver it. So we have 14 tractor trailers and a number of box trucks, and so we have a shared maintenance fee, and it's about, the average is about somewhere between 6 to 9 cents per pound of food. So depending on how many pounds of food an agency orders, they will pay that transportation fee. Now we also, the second kind of food that we procure is purchased product. So we will procure purchased product that agencies will want, and then they pay a reduced fee on that purchased product. But because we can procure food at such economies of scale, there's still, I mean, we will often say to people, you could go to the grocery store and buy a case of green beans, and what you're gonna pay, we could, you might spend a couple dollars to get 4 cans of green beans, and we could probably get an entire case for a couple dollars, just because that's our purchasing power, because we can purchase entire truckloads from manufacturers. So it's always, so we sort of bring that economies to scale. And then for a lot of our programs, all of our kids programs, I forgot to mention our kids cafes and our summer meal programs too, like the backpacks are at no cost to the schools. So we have about 700 schools, like I said, 500 on the backpack program that feed about 20,000 kids a year. And there's no delivery fee, there's no food fee. That's all purchased product, and it costs us, we raise about $4 million a year just to fund our kids programs.
I can answer that also, since I purchase food from the food bank. I can give you an idea of how that works. My normal order on a monthly basis is about between 2,000 and 2,300 pounds, and the amount I pay for that is about $100. So it's next to nothing.
And that's both purchased and what I call the procurement.
Yes.
You have both purchased and
Yes, I do. Now, sometimes I have to get the things that are going to cost me more because I need them. Those are things that we don't always get in donations, but I do need them. So it's still amazingly cheap. It's just incredible.
Are there any other questions from the audience? I have a couple. Go ahead.
I have one more to Mark. The food pantries that you have at the middle schools and the high schools, is there a point of collection where churches and organizations that collect food from their parishioners or their members of their congregation should take it in order for it to be distributed out? Is there a central point?
Yeah. What that is in each school, I don't know.
And so it's
I don't
school
know
by
if you know
school
whether
Well,
or not,
we probably, yeah, because most of the, I think this middle or high school pantries would be food bank affiliates here in Norman, and so we have all the school coordinators, and Mark could probably get them too, but we have the list of those people. If you wanted to make a delivery and drop off food directly to a school pantry, we would probably connect you to the local school person who operates that pantry. If you wanted to make a donation for a school pantry, you can do that with us, you can do that with them, and that money could be designated for their purchases and their orders.
So is there a person in Norman that is
No.
a regional food bank contact person or what? Because my church has a food pantry, and we're looking to make sure that we help fill the gaps in Norman. And I just heard you say middle schools and high schools may be low, so we may want to.
What I can do for you is, this particular individual was from Whittier Middle School. They call it Friday Backpacks, but she never did call me back, so I don't want to give out her name. But if you want, I'll give you my card, and you can contact me, and then I can help get you in contact with those different people.
But if you wanted to cover all of the pantries in Norman, you probably I'm not aware of anyone in really Norman or any community that has sort of a person in the community who's in charge of all the pantries. That would probably be the food bank, and we could communicate with all those coordinators.
That's what I'm
So I
trying to
can
do.
give you my card for that.
All of
To
us
be able
talk
to have a
to the food
central
bank.
drop-off
Yeah.
place where once a week we could bring the peanut butter and crackers and things like that.
Yeah,
to
if you
be
wanted
able
to donate to all of them, we could collect that and get that to all of them.
Okay.
Or,
And
yeah.
I will
Figure it
tell
out.
you, there's bridges.
I know, yeah, we did
Yeah.
bridges.
They
already,
keep
yeah,
a
we-
food pantry.
Because that's one trip and that's out there, but when we are talking about 4 middle schools and 2 high schools, then volunteers are delivering it, and we've already got volunteers to Salvation Army and Food and Shelter every week, and so so the 6 more trips would perhaps stretch our folks.
If you contact them, they might be willing to come and get it
Yeah.
from you as well. because I know that they're in dire need sometimes,
Yeah.
and they run really low on supplies, so they might just come and get it.
Yeah.
Whoever's in charge of that particular school.
That's what, I mean, that sounds like an area that maybe we could work with Mark and with
Yeah.
Katie and
We
figure
would
out a
probably,
way
yeah.
to have a, and this could apply to other churches too, that we
Yeah.
get to the point where, okay, every Friday or every Monday or whatever, you know that there's gonna be a drop off that everybody from Central, or not from Central, that shows how old I am. From
West,
Hallville and
Central
everything
and
like
West.
that. Yeah, can come pick up stuff and then refill their pantries.
Sure.
So,
But
but anyway.
my
so-
question, I had a question, because I know that churches in Norman, like sponsor a school or there's a relationship with it. And so are they involved with food things or not so much? I don't know. That may be that they bring Kleenex and chalk. I don't know. Okay, well, that's something else we can find out. And I have to see a question back
In
there.
general, would you just prefer somebody give you money and let you buy the things you need, or do you like these donations?
Well, I'll tell you how we answer that question. And, I mean, it depends on who you're giving to. For a food bank, it's better to get money, because we have stronger purchasing power, frankly, than if you were to purchase food and give it. We could get more food for your money. But if you're wanting to support food and shelter, then it may be food, because their purchasing power is not necessarily as great.
My purchasing power is great because I buy what I need from the food bank. But we really encourage, there's a list on our website, and I renew that list about every 2 weeks of all the things that I need currently. And so people can go get a jar of peanut butter or 2 gallons of milk or whatever it is and bring it. There are things that I don't normally get from the food bank, and so I do rely on the actual food donations. I prefer to have food donated rather than money, because I have a budget within which I work, and unless that is renewed on an annual basis, that money just goes into the general fund, and then if I go over budget, they pull it out. But it's just to support food and shelter in general is how that works. So if you want to give food specifically, then you should bring that food.
And our church, Memorial, has a box where we take food to food and shelter. We'd be happy for our new sister church people.
That's right.
And one month we collected can openers,
Yes.
because think about people getting a bunch of cans and not having access to them.
And one of the things too, people oftentimes, because I'm, as I said, involved with a church that has a food pantry, people when they go to, we put a list in our bulletin of things that are specifically asked for by different food pantries, and people when they go to the store, they'll just pick stuff up that's on our list, and then they'll bring it to church, and where they may not feel like they got the cash to give and some things like that. So that's one of the
Right.
the
Some
ways
people
that
prefer to do
the
that.
food
Yeah.
donations work
Yeah.
for actually getting things out. And I think Betty would probably agree with that she sees that from churches that provide.
Did I see a hand back here with a question? You can affirm.
Yeah, just one thing, and Mark, you guys do a great job with the Norman Public Schools, but I will remind everybody, in part of what I do, we have a very large community, and I do a lot of work out on the east side of town, and we have another independent school district and a dependent school district in Little Axe and Robin Hill that aren't served by Sodexo.
That's right.
Little Axe has a competitor that does their food service, and they do a lot of food pantry stuff as well. And in fact, when they had the teacher walk out, they actually had to deliver meals using the buses, because you just can't walk Little Axe School District, not at all. So when you think about that, and you think about the need, there is a large need in the rural areas of Norman that we don't see very much, that don't come into food and shelter. No regional food bank does a lot of work out there. So I just texted the superintendent to see what they had as far as the food pantry, and he hadn't got back with me, which is
I think we have some with Little Axe.
yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's pretty.
They do have some programs, and but keep that in mind when when you talk about, you know, all the need that's out there, that we do have a lot of other kids outside of the Norman Public School System that live in the Norman city limits. Noble has a lot of kids that live in the Norman city limits. Moore has a lot of kids that live in the Norman city limits. So there's a lot of other schools out there. When you think about that, and you think, well, I'm way out here. I don't have anybody I can serve. Well, yeah, you do. You have a lot of people out there. So and these guys, I work with Meals on Wheels. I've been on a number of calls where I've come in and helped them out where they've had folks
Welfare
that,
checks, yeah.
that have gone down. Food and shelter, I work with them quite a bit, and with the continuum of care with our homeless community. So these guys do great work. They do wonderful work.
I'm happy to hear that the police are connected into it. That's great.
We have a lot of connections, and thanks to the PSS team, we've been able to have the manpower to be able to do a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yes.
I'll just ask this question, and it might be directed to you or to Katie. Is there a list of the food pantries in Norman, in the city limits, or in Dean County, or?
Yeah, we have on our website, you can click on any county of our 53 counties and get a one sheet, we call it. It's really actually 2 sheets, but it kind of gives you some data on the county, and then it will list all the backpack programs, school pantries, kids cafes, and summer feeding sites. I looked at the Cleveland County one. It has not yet been updated with last year's data, but the schools probably won't change a lot.
And does it have the church food pantries?
It also has all our partner
Okay.
agencies. Yep.
The one, the Church of Christ one that does one,
Yep.
me in the paper, so
That's
it's
all
got.
those. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you so much to our panelists. I've learned a lot, and I think this was useful, and let's give the panelists